The Players Association released an unhinged, unchecked, emotional statement going at the league, going at the owners. And just when you think the owners in the league can't get more favor, can't look better in the court of public opinion, the Players Association always seem to do something that makes the other side look
unhinged, unchecked, emotional. Those aren't my words. That's how the WNBA Players Association's latest statement is being described, even by people who want to support them. And the timing couldn't be worse. January 9th, 2026. The current collective bargaining agreement expired at midnight, and instead of coming to the table with a serious negotiating position, the players rolled out an inflatable rat outside the NBA store and released a statement so tone-deaf, it actually made the owners look like the reasonable ones. Here's what makes this fascinating. Every time the owners make a move that could hurt their public image, the players somehow manage to do something that makes the league look better by comparison. It's like watching someone lose a chess match by knocking over their own pieces.
Quadruple your salary. They're willing to raise the salary cap. They're willing to increase the revenue sharing from 9% to around 15%. They're willing to do all those things. But the players, not only do they not want to compromise, but they still want them to pay for room and board. They still want the owners to pay for their housing, their cars, the furniture, streaming subscriptions, groceries. They want the owners to pay for it all.
Let's talk about what the owners actually put on the table, because the numbers matter here. The league offered to quadruple player salaries, not double, quadruple. They proposed raising the salary cap significantly, increasing revenue sharing from 9% to around 15%. They're offering players between $400,000 and $1.2 million annually. Remember, these same players made $60,000 to $200,000 just a few years ago. But according to the Players Association, that's not enough. They still want the owners to pay for housing, cars, furniture, streaming subscriptions, and groceries. They want the owners to cover room and board on top of salaries that would make them among the highest paid women's professional athletes in the world.
Regarding CBA expiration, let's see what they have to say. Friday, January 9th, 2026. At midnight, the 2020 WNBA Players Association collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and...
The Players Association released their statement on Friday, January 17th, 2025, and the language they chose is revealing. They accused the league of demonstrating an unwillingness to compromise, of undervaluing player contributions, and of running out the clock. They claimed the owners are jeopardizing the livelihoods of players and the trust of fans by clinging to the status quo. But here's the problem with that narrative. If you actually look at the progression of owner proposals from the first offer to the most recent one, all you see is movement toward the middle. All you see is the owners compromising, adjusting, trying to find common ground. What you don't see is the players budging at all.
Yes, a whole bunch of garbage, a whole bunch of nonsense. The owners aren't willing to compromise. Well, if you look at the first proposal by the owners compared to this most latest proposal by the owners, all it shows is the owners' willingness to compromise. All it shows is the owners' willingness to move closer to the middle. All it shows is you guys' lack of willing to compromise. You guys' refusal to actually compromise and deal and negotiate. That's all that we get as fans. We don't see you guys trying to compromise at all.
And then there's this line from their statement: players care deeply about their fans and take pride in honoring that loyalty every time they take the court. Let's examine that claim for a second. These are the same players who've thrown fans out of arenas for laughing when someone's wig fell off during a game. The same players who launched fake investigations because they couldn't handle an actual competitive sports atmosphere. The same players who hand out little cards before games telling fans what they're not allowed to say. The same players who tell fans to watch but not criticize. So which fans are we talking about exactly? Because the new fans who showed up in 2024, the ones who actually drove the ratings increases, they're not buying this narrative anymore.
That feels like sports. Those same fans? Interesting. Interesting. The same fans that you guys hand out little cards before games saying, please don't say. Those fans are the fans that you care about? The fans that come trying to get a good product, but you guys can't make fundamentally sound plays. You guys can't make layups. You guys keep tripping over yourselves. Those same fans? The fans that come to watch good basketball, but the players are just practicing an hour a day, 2 hours a day minimum? Those same fans you care about?
The Players Association also made a point about their inflatable rat protest outside the NBA store. Calling it a universal symbol of labor protests, they said it was meant to call attention to how the league has handled negotiations by delaying and clinging to the status quo. But here's what that protest actually accomplished. It made them look like they're more interested in performative activism than actual negotiation. It made them look like they care more about social media optics than sitting down and hammering out a deal. Because while they were setting up inflatable rats in Manhattan, the owners were putting together proposals that would fundamentally transform player compensation in this league. The optics of that protest backfired spectacularly. Instead of generating sympathy, it generated eye roll.
This is the owner's response. The Women's National Basketball Association issued the following statement today. The current collective bargaining agreement has expired, and negotiations with the Women's National Basketball Players Association remain ongoing. As the league experiences a pivotal time of unprecedented popularity and growth, we recognize the importance of building upon that momentum. Our priority is a deal that significantly increases player salaries, enhances the overall player experience, and supports the long-term growth of the league for current and future generations of players and fans. I love hearing them talk about future players.
Now, let's look at the league's response, because the contrast in tone is striking. The WNBA issued a statement that was measured, professional, and focused on solutions. They acknowledged that the CBA had expired and that negotiations remain ongoing. They talked about the league experiencing a pivotal time of unprecedented popularity and growth. They emphasized that their priority is a deal that significantly increases player salaries, enhances the overall player experience, and supports the long-term growth of the league. And here's the key phrase: for current and future generations of players and fans. Future generations. That's who the owners are thinking about. Because they understand that if they cave to every demand right now, there might not be a league for future players to join.
Be wary. We have Andy Costable talking about the WNBA and Players Association are in discussions of a moratorium proposal applicable to league biz, specifically free agency. Reported at 11:06. We have Ramona Shelburne saying that same thing. We have Alexa Philippou saying the same thing. And what I want you guys to be wary of the fake fans out there that think that they know everything. I'm looking at you, yeah. Sources with knowledge of the situation tell Christina Williams that as of now, the WNBA has not proposed a free agency moratorium ahead of tonight's deadline. And that
there's a fascinating subplot here involving media coverage that reveals how deep the dysfunction goes. On January 19th, multiple reports emerged about a potential free agency moratorium. Annie Costabile reported it at 11:06 a.m. Ramona Shelburne confirmed it. Alexa Philippou backed it up. These are credible journalists with actual sources inside the league. But then Christina Williams, who positions herself as a WNBA insider, put out a contradictory report claiming that sources with knowledge of the situation told her the league had not proposed a moratorium. She was immediately contradicted by the actual beat reporters who cover this league full-time. This matters because it shows there's a faction of WNBA media, superfans masquerading as journalists, who are willing to put out information that serves the player's narrative regardless of whether it's accurate. And that echo chamber is part of what's gotten the players into this mess.
I do have the ESPN article pulled up. Let me just read it for you real quick. The idea of a moratorium was floated by the league a few days ago, but put in writing late Friday night, sources said, and the union is now reviewing the proposal. Front offices were told this leak that teams should prepare to extend qualifying offers and core designations under the expired agreement. That would mean teams technically could offer players qualifying offers and core designations as soon as Sunday, January 20th. It's widely expected that players would not want to sign contracts while a new salary system with expected massive increases in compensation is still being bargained. Makes sense, but at least the league is trying to do something to push things along. Let's just take a look right here. Again,
according to ESPN's reporting, the league floated the idea of a moratorium a few days before the deadline, but didn't put it in writing until late Friday night, January 7th. The union was reviewing the proposal, but front offices were told to prepare to extend qualifying offers and core designations under the expired agreement starting Sunday, January. Here's what that means practically. Teams could technically make offers, but players weren't expected to sign anything while a new salary system with massive increases was still being negotiated. The league was trying to create a framework that would keep things moving without forcing anyone into bad decisions. That's what compromise looks like. That's what good faith negotiation looks like. But the Players Association was too busy setting up inflatable rats to recognize it.
I'm sorry, I had to. Picking a side, and I'm going with the owners. Damn. They've kept the W going since inception despite running deficits every year. If quadrupling salaries isn't enough, you need to talk to someone working in the real world, and it's the fans, not players, responsible for the added value. Bravo. It's the new influx of fans. Let's extend on that. It's Caitlin Clark's.
Look at how this is playing in the court of public opinion. One commenter wrote, "I'm sorry, I had to pick a side, and I'm going with the owners." They've kept the WNBA going since inception, despite running deficits every year. If quadrupling salaries isn't enough, you need to talk to someone working in the real world. Another said, if they cared about the fans, they would have signed the deal the league offered, which was more than fair. Y'all played the last 10 years for 60 to 200,000, but you think 400,000 to 1.2 million is a slap in the face. This is the new reality. The WNBA finally has enough mainstream attention that average fans are actually looking at the numbers. And when they look at the numbers, they're siding with the owners.
You're losing money. It's hard to be pro players when these guys are just losing money, embarrassing themselves every time they get in front of the microphone. It's hard. The owners do not care. The players will strike, the owners will still not care, and eventually the players will completely cave. Billionaires do not care. Someone is flinching after the stare down. WNBA is not one of them. Just fold this league and be a phoenix to rise out of these ashes. I'm going to blame the people who wrote this letter. You know who I'm going to blame? Let me take a sip of this before I blame these people. I'm blaming the 46,000 fans that used to follow this pre-Caitlin Clark. I'm sorry. I got to blame you guys. And if you're one of them that's been watching this channel, I'm not talking to you.
Here's what I think is really happening. And this is where we need to talk about the deeper psychology at work. A lot of these veteran players missed the NIL era. They came up in college before athletes could profit from their name, image, and likeness. They watched the generation behind them sign endorsement deals while still in school. They saw players like Paige Bueckers and Juju Watkins become millionaires before turning pro. So now there's this desperation to make up for lost time. There's this feeling of we missed out, so now we need to get ours. And that's understandable on a human level. But it's not a negotiating strategy. It's not a business plan. And it's definitely not something that's going to convince owners who've been losing money for 28 years to suddenly open up the checkbook with no strings attached. The owners are running businesses. The players are operating on emotion, and in a negotiation, emotion loses to spreadsheets every single time.
Instead of saying, no, you need to put time in the gym. No, you need to work at your handling. No, you need to work with your agility. No, you need to work on basic fundamentals. No, why don't you box out? And you know how you know that they haven't been told this? The 2024 rookie class. And I'm going to give you an example. Caitlin Clark comes in and shatters all these records as a rookie. Like every single record that's ever been made. Angel Reese comes in and just out rebounds everybody because you guys can't rebound, you guys can't box out, you guys got no hustle, you guys got complacent. Cameron Brink leading the league in blocks up until she gets injured. You guys got exposed bad last season.
But there's another factor we need to address, and this is uncomfortable but necessary. For years, the WNBA operated in relative obscurity. There were maybe 46,000 fans following the league closely before Caitlin Clark arrived. And within that small community, there was a culture of unconditional support. Any criticism was labeled as hate. Any honest assessment of skill gaps was dismissed as misogyny. Players were constantly told they were amazing, revolutionary, groundbreaking. Even when the on-court product didn't match the rhetoric, that created a bubble. And inside that bubble, players started to believe their own press. They started to think that the lack of revenue was entirely due to lack of promotion, lack of respect, lack of investment, never lack of interest or lack of entertainment value. They convinced themselves that if the league just marketed them properly, they'd be selling out arenas and pulling NBA-level ratings. Then 2024 happened. Caitlin Clark arrived. Angel Reese arrived. Cameron Brink arrived. And suddenly there were eyes on the product. Real eyes. Millions of them. And you know what those new fans saw? They saw rookies outperforming veterans. They saw fundamental skills that should be basic, boxing out, defensive rotations, finishing layups, being executed poorly by players who'd been in the league for years. Caitlin Clark came in and shattered every rookie record. Angel Reese dominated the boards because veteran players had gotten complacent about rebounding. Cameron Brink led the league in blocks until her injury because apparently nobody else had been prioritizing rim protection. These rookies exposed how much the league had stagnated. And that's a hard truth for veterans to swallow. But instead of using that as motivation to elevate their games, some of these players are using it as justification to demand more money. They're saying we built this league while simultaneously being outplayed by 22-year-olds. And fans are watching this disconnect in real time. The owners see it too. They see that the rating spike wasn't because of the veterans. It was because of the rookie. It was because of Caitlin Clark specifically, who brought her massive fan base from Iowa. And now those owners are being asked to pay veteran salaries based on popularity those veterans didn't create. That's the subtext of this entire negotiation. The players want to be paid based on The owners know that success was driven by specific individuals, not by the collective. And that fundamental disagreement is why we're at an impasse. Here's what the Players Association doesn't seem to understand. The owners finally have leverage. For 28 years, they've been operating at a loss, propped up by the NBA, with no real public support for taking a hard line. Anytime they pushed back on player demands, they were accused of not supporting women's sports. They were painted as the bad guys. But now there are millions of fans who actually understand the economics. Fans who see that the league has never turned a profit. Fans who think quadrupling salaries is more than generous given the financial reality. Fans who are tired of watching players complain about working conditions that would be considered luxury accommodations in most professions. The owners are hearing those voices. And for the first time in league history, they're emboldened to say no. They're emboldened to let the CBA expire. They're emboldened to call what they see as the players' bluff. One commenter captured it perfectly. The owners do not care. The players will strike, the owners will still not care. And eventually the players will completely cave. Billionaires do not care. That's harsh, but it's probably accurate. Because at the end of the day, the owners have other businesses, other investments, other sources of income and identity. The WNBA is a passion project for most of them, not a primary revenue stream. They can afford to wait this out. The player, they can't. This is their livelihood. This is their career window. Every month without a deal is a month of their prime athletic years slipping away. Every month without games is a month without paychecks, without exposure, without the platform they need to build their personal brand. So who has more leverage in this standoff? It's not even close. And here's the thing that should terrify the Players Association. There are fans actively rooting for this league to fold. People who are so fed up with the entitlement, the poor play, the constant complaining, that they'd rather see the whole thing shut down and rebuilt from scratch. One comment said it plainly, just fold this league and be a phoenix to rise out of these ashes. That's where we are. The goodwill that the WNBA spent decades building, the idea that you had to support it because it was women's sports, regardless of the quality, that's gone. The new fans don't have that emotional investment. They'll watch if it's entertaining. They'll support it if the players seem grateful for the opportunity. But they're not going to be guilt-tripped into backing what they see as unreasonable demands. The Players Association made a catastrophic miscalculation. They thought that 2024's success gave them leverage. They thought that the ratings spike meant they could demand NBA-level compensation. They thought that the owners would be desperate to capitalize on the momentum and would cave to avoid a work stoppage. But they forgot that the owners have been in this position for 28 years. They've been losing money since they've been subsidizing this league out of their own pockets, out of their commitment to women's sports, out of their belief that it would eventually become sustainable. And after nearly 3 decades of that, their patience has limit. The players had an opportunity here. They had an offer on the table that would have made them among the highest paid women's athletes in the world. They had a chance to secure generational wealth for current players while setting up a framework for future growth. They had a path to. Instead, they chose to set up an inflatable rat and write an emotional press release that made them look petty, entitled, and out of touch with economic reality. They chose to position themselves as victims of owners who are literally offering to quadruple their salary. They chose to claim they care about fans, while simultaneously alienating the new fan base that actually drove the league's growth. And now they're going to find out what happens when you overplay your hand, because the owners aren't blinking. The public isn't on their side. And every day without a deal makes it clearer that the players need this league more than the league needs these particular players. So here's my question for you. Do you think the players will eventually cave and accept something close to the owner's current offer? Or do you think the owners will actually let this drag out long enough that we miss part or all of the 2026 season? Because based on everything we're seeing, I don't think the owners are backing down. And I don't think the players have a plan for what happens if this turns into a prolonged work stoppage. Drop your prediction in the comments. Tell me if you think I'm being too hard on the players, or if you think this assessment is accurate. And if you're getting value from this kind of detailed breakdown of what's actually happening in the WNBA, hit that subscribe button because this story is far from over.